Welcome to Thorns and Thoughts. Unfortunately, I don't have any content. The man already speaks his man, but I ain't gonna stop you now. I assume you saw a pretty fucking good video, all right? And you're already on the man's channel, so stay a little while longer. I see you're comfortable, and just check a few more out.
Right, being as this was like, apparently I got that story wrong, and it was the season 7 World, so we'll get to that later. But I've set it up right. Obviously, people will know in the next year of TSM is when you just became like this. Happens in every TSM lineup, you notice. Unless the team just wins constantly and never even comes close to losing, someone always gets blamed by the fans. Same thing happens in Fnatic. To be fair, they've got the huge fan base, and what basically happens is there's one player that gets blamed for all the losses, and it felt like it became you. You were the one where it's also the classic league thing. If you flame the jungler, don't you? He must be the one fucking it up. And so everyone's flaming you. But I also remember in this year, though, season 6 was the one where it actually looked great. Like we were saying, like coming into this world, you should have been good. I remember you said that one of the things you actually liked about Bjergsen's style, but it was basically just the style TSM played was, he would be vocal when he had like a timing, like I can roam now or I can come and do something. And basically your job is just wait for that. Don't be dead. And then when he says something, you just move with him at the same time. It sounds pretty simplistic, but it did work in LCS, right? You had a good synergy to some degree, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was really easy working with Bjergsen. I think it's always been, because he's very vocal about what he needs. And I think mid lane has just always been one of the most important roles in the game. So whenever the mid laner can do something, it's time to do something as a team. Like your mid laner can push and dive a side lane. That's what the whole team should be playing for. So I mean, it's always been easy to work with him.
Like I said, in the next year, did you also get that feeling that like fans blamed you? I also got the vibe some of the players in the team maybe blamed you. What do you think?
I know the fans definitely didn't like me in 2017. Even a lot of the time during 16, I remember the fans just were really brutal. And I mean, I think that was just kind of being the jungler in TSM, where the job were kind of to tank the fans' hate, and I think it's always been that way, kind of being the TSM jungler. So yeah, I wasn't that good at tanking the hate. It definitely got to me mentally, but it's something that I've been a lot better at ever since I was on TSM, like moving forward. But yeah, on TSM, it definitely affected me.
Would you say that, because like you said about working with Bjergsen, I actually wonder what it's like to work with Doublelift, because here's what's funny. Maybe because of the timing of when we're doing this interview now, people will finally see that, like, in some ways, he is a brilliant League of Legends player, but I don't think I would never describe him as like a cerebral player. I don't think he's like super intelligent in general, but we'll just say in the game to be polite, right? I always just got the sense that like what worked with him, and it's a bit like what you said about the mid lane position, is if you have like a really amazing lane dominant ADC like him who gets fed and gets a load of gold, to some degree that you should listen to them and let them call some of the shots, because essentially they'll know like when they're strong, they'll know when to group, they'll know if they can fight a dragon or if they can come and win a team fight. So to some degree, you do listen to them. But I wondered, what was your interaction with him like? I mean, you played with the Spicy Forgiven before, so what was it like to play with Doublelift?
I mean, in some ways, Doublelift was pretty similar to Forgiven, but in other ways, he was very different. So it was easier to work with than Forgiven, definitely. I think Doublelift was also just... I think going in from 16 to 17, he changed a lot, and even 16 spring to 16 summer, I think he changed a lot. So it got a lot easier to work with him, and he kind of realized that he can't just always play aggressively. I think that was a big mind shift change from him as a person. Was like, okay, sometimes when my jungler is pathing towards top, I shouldn't be trying to push bottom. The jungler can probably gank me. I remember this from our scrims was like something that was crazy to him. Like when my jungler is pathing top, that means the enemy jungler can be pathing down, and I shouldn't be trading too much. That was like a thing as a team we went over. So that was pretty crazy. But yeah, I think he was easy to work with in the sense that he stepped up a lot as a person, and also me back then, like I didn't really know how to play the game that well, so I wasn't really stepping up in communication and how to play the game, like the macro point of the game. So it was easy to play with him because he was just stepping up in that sense, so saying like, even if it's not the right thing, like he was just telling the team what the fuck to do. So like, hit Baron. I was like, okay, Doublelift said it, let's hit Baron, you know. So it was just like a confidence thing, definitely, and yeah, he just had a lot of confidence.
By the way, people always wondered what was the relationship between Doublelift and Bjergsen like, because I have to say, in the years later, they still seemed friendly, but it seemed like they were a little bit spicy. They were like mildly trash talk each other. What was the relationship between the two like?
I would say the relationship was really good, to the sense that outside of the game, they're really good friends. I think during the game it was very heated, and during reviews it was very heated. Every single review were somebody arguing about something for like 20, 30 minutes. It was me and Bifrost just sitting on the sidelines, getting flamed, tanking the heat sometimes, and then when we're not getting flamed, it was Hauntzer, Bjergsen, and Doublelift just trying to one-up each other, flame somebody. Like they're like arguing about the game. Obviously, it was like, I think it was really good that we had like a lot of constructive criticism, and we were like on edge, or like we're willing to talk to each other about what we thought people were doing wrong or messing up on. But definitely, it was like it was a little toxic right then.
Right, there was a story that Sven told me from his time in TSM, and I've known a lot of the players that played in TSM, and this story sounds entirely accurate to a lot of reports, where basically people might know, like my joke is that Reginald was almost just like some sitcom character that like, during the review, it's like he just busts in the room, and then it's like, whoa, and then all of a sudden it's all about like what Reginald's saying and what he's thinking, and people might know, it used to even be on like the TFSL Legends, there'd be all those things where you'd almost think like, is this a skit? Like this isn't real, surely. Where he's like I remember some of them would be like arguing back in the day with Dire, like you bought the wrong boots, and you were like, you didn't even play top lane, what? Like, and he would have such weird, almost like solo queue level, like almost like a Reddit fan giving advice, right? And the story Sven told was really crazy, because he said that eventually, by the time he joined TSM, Bjergsen and Parth would just take anyone new aside and go, look, if Reginald comes in, like, don't argue with him. Whatever he says, just say like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do it again different next time. Because if you argue, it just takes 20 minutes and you're going to have to say he's right anyway, because it's Reginald, he's your boss. And basically, if you just say like, oh, okay, then he'll just leave eventually and think that you're going to fix it or whatever. Have you got any stories like this? Was it ever like this with Reginald in your team?
I mean, countless times. I think that one of the things that it was crazy. I mean, I think Doublelift just never refused to back down from an argument.
Right.
And the same with Reginald, so they would just keep going forever. It was just non-stopping. Everyone else on the team kind of realized, like, yeah, there's not really no point in arguing against him, you know, like, he's going to come in for one scrim and then he's not going to be here for, like, 2 more weeks, so nothing he says is really, it's not going to change the outcome of what we're practicing, but it's like, sure, like, he might have some good ideas, you know, it might be useless, but, I mean, we still kind of respect him, you know, like he's good at the game, or he was, and he's the owner of the team, you know, like we kind of have to listen to what he says sometimes, you know, so, but yeah, I remember him and Peter would just go at it relentlessly.
Right, obviously Sven had the really funny line, which I know he just must have remembered because it's so ridiculous, where it's apparently Reggie did say to Sven, like, why don't you just dodge the Kaiser Q, which is a target ability if people don't know. So, like, obviously you can't dodge it if they're just within range, just hits you. Did he ever have a funny one like that with you? Did he ever give you any whack, like advice for how to play jungle, or you should have done a build differently or something?
The one that just stands out to me is him flaming Bifrost for not knowing which arm Blitzcrank hooks out of. So Blitzcrank hooks out of the left arm or the right arm or something, and we were trying Blitzcrank, and after the game, it didn't go that well, right? And then he was asking Bifrost, like, hey, do you even know what the fuck side of the arm, like, Blitzcrank hooks out of? And then apparently that's really important because you know how to dodge the Blitzcrank.
Oh, right, I see, yes.
Or something. Even though I'm pretty sure it goes in the same line, like, no matter what, it's a skill shot, it comes straight, but he was adamant on, like, yeah, he comes from the right, so you have to dodge it differently. And Bifrost didn't know which side, so we just were not allowed to play Blitzcrank after that because he didn't know what side it came out of.
There you go. Okay, classic. Yeah. By the way, one thing I did want to ask was, right, like I said, it's obviously the classic thing to flame the jungler anyway in teams and in solo queue. But did you ever feel like, you don't have to name names, but did you ever feel like some of your teammates also sort of like blamed you for losses in TSM or felt like you were underperforming or something? Because when I go back and look, like even though everyone had this image of you that they just made you like the dog and all the support thing, dude, you still played all the like Lee Sin and fucking Elise and Rengar or whatever. Like you still played all the aggressive champions if you wanted, and you were still winning loads of games. Like you won both the splits. So what do you remember about this year in that sense?
Just 17. So, I mean, I was just playing the meta stuff. I think the whole year I was just playing meta stuff. It was never like I wanted to play tanks, I wanted to play carries. I was just more like, I think I realized how we win as a team is like, it doesn't really matter. Like, as long as mid lane and AD carries even or gets fed, then they shot call, and then we just play better macro than the other teams. So, I was willing to play whatever just the meta was. I think that's what that came to.
Right, when you guys went to this world, so we'll rewind then, because obviously that was the one where in the boot camp, apparently you just got flamed to fuck and everyone told you he was shit, right? This is the one where, like, on paper, this is the one that's really criminal at TSM digging out the group. Like, this is the one where there's no team there is going to win the fucking tournament. Like, people like Misfits, nobody even knows them. Flash Wolves is like all right at the time. Even WE from China is like, yeah, they're a good team, but no one thinks they're going to win Worlds or that they were going to win MSI or whatever. So what you've like you alluded to on the Crackdown, so there was obviously problems internally in the team. What went wrong here? Why did TSM not get out of this group?
I'm just trying to think. I just remember our boot camp being really stressful because it was just added on as a lot of pressure for no reason. Like you mentioned before, like Reginald being there for the whole boot camp and trying to do some coaching, and it was just added on a lot of stress for no reason. And I also remember when we made it to Worlds, he was also there doing our World scrims, and it was just painful. The reviews were just not constructive at all, and actually destructive to our team play. So that's just what I remember.
Right. The other thing is, I said earlier how in spring of season 6, like originally the Woodbuck guy was the coach, and people might not realize after that was that bizarre thing where Parth, who was supposed to be like backroom staff at TSM, became the coach. But then because he won the splits, he just stayed as the coach the whole time. Yet what was weird, mate, is I swear in interviews he would even always say like, "I'm not supposed to be the coach or something," which is like you've been there like 3 splits now, like 2 worlds or something. Like, well, how did that work? Because here's the thing: I do know he is an intelligent guy about the game, and he definitely knows some things and sort of surprising to his time that they were able to recruit a lot of good players. But how did that operate? Was he like a proper coach? How hands-on was he, etc.? Because it was also implied maybe like Bjergsen and Doublelift just ran the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think he did his job really well, and he was more of like a facilitator, like facilitating conversations, and he definitely had really good knowledge about the game. But the team was more run like I think Bjergsen wanted Parth as the coach or something, because obviously the coach before wasn't really a coach. He didn't really do anything or didn't really know much about the game or anything, so there was not really any respect for him. And I think what they ended up just doing is like the same as like one of my other team with the Defisio, was just like hiring someone that you know you can work well with rather than hiring someone for their qualifications. And I think a lot of times that's more important if you already have 5 really good players. You just need someone you know you can work well with, and just make sure that you're not bullshitting, or just making yourself accountable, basically. Just keeping people accountable, saying, like, say Bjergsen said he's supposed to get priority in this matchup, but now he's not doing it. Like, what is going on? Like, you're supposed to have priority here. Like, stuff like that, rather than, like, just telling us how to play the game. It was more like just a facilitator, and I think he was really good at that job. And yeah.
Right, to ask about Hauntzer, I've got to rewind a bit, because what people will remember is famously Doublelift didn't play in the spring split in season 7, and while Turtle came back in, you guys won anyway, but this was the split where Hauntzer was like one of the MVP candidates along with Bjergsen, and people gave him a lot of votes. And the perception I got from the outside, and based on what happened later, is, as far as I know, it doesn't surprise me Hauntzer and Doublelift used to argue, because basically Hauntzer was one of those top lanes that wants to play carries, like he wants to get ganks and be played to. Now in this split, obviously there's no Doublelift. It felt like he got to happen, right? This is one of the players that you were able to help a lot. What was Hauntzer like as a player? Was this accurate? He had more of like, he wanted to be the carry, he wanted to be the star to some degree?
I mean, yeah, he also is the same as Doublelift, where he has a lot of ego and he wants to be the star of the team. He was never okay with just getting carried or being a role player. He always wanted to play carries, and just not wanting to like be okay getting carried, I guess, which is I think it's very fine to be like that. But obviously in the spring split, when Doublelift wasn't there, and I think the year before Doublelift really turned into a shot caller, even though publicly it might have been Bjergsen or something, but I think during our games it was really just Doublelift shot calling. And going into the next year, season 7, losing Doublelift's voice was just really tough for us, because we had just no direction on how we wanted to play the game, and basically it was like came down to like either I had to do it or Hauntzer had to do it. It was like a team decision basically. I remember Parth asking us like somebody needs to be the shot caller, and I couldn't do it, and Bifrost couldn't really do it either because we just didn't have that much confidence. And I mean, Hauntzer stepped into it perfectly. He had a lot of confidence, a lot of ego, and he was able to just take that role on and really do well for our team, definitely.
Right, obviously in this off-season was when Svenskeren was then no longer with TSM. Right, the story goes that because they were getting Sven and Mithy, you can only have 2 imports at the time, so that's it, there's 2 imports, you had to go, etc. Was there a world where you could have stayed? Was there an offer to stay? Basically, what happened?
So I just remember being like completely left in the dust there, or like left in the dark. Nobody was really talking to me after Worlds. I was just like, I kind of felt like I wasn't going to be on the team just because nobody was talking to me at all from the team. So I kind of knew what was going to happen, but I kind of would have liked, somebody to keep me in the loop of like, this is what's going on, maybe not. But yeah, I mean, definitely I also had an opportunity to stay for the next year as like a 6-man/sub, but I didn't see the point because there was no, like, they were going to be maxed out on the imports, so there was like literally no way I was going to play unless they sub in some NA player somewhere. But yeah, I just didn't really see the point in that, so I didn't stay.
Right, obviously you went to Cloud9. People will know this story. Like, this is where I actually wonder how much is narratives and how much is like if we went to watch the games, people would see in TSM that you won most of the games and you were playing the Gary champions and you were good sometimes, because the perception goes a bit like what happened with Sven, because he came from TSM to Cloud9 too and he got flamed. The perception from the outside is TSM, I mean, this part's true, to some degree had like a difficult or bad internal relationship, especially with people like Reggie coming in and flaming people. Whereas Cloud9, at least the public perception is it's all sunshines and rainbows, isn't it? Like, you really are on Cloud9. Jack's there, the lovely Jack coming in, and it's all to team spirit, and we live in that team house and all that jazz. Like, how much of that is true? How much was Cloud9 a different environment?
Cloud9 was a way different environment. It was night and day. I think it was like, yeah, I mean, I don't know how else to say it. It was just night and day. I remember on TSM, there was like curfew and you weren't allowed to basically do anything. On Cloud9, it was like, okay, you guys just have to live here and practice, and then outside of that, you have free time. Like, you can do whatever you want in your free time. So it was like, yeah, I mean, it was a really nice experience joining that.
Because the other thing is, like, this is the one where even though in like the playoffs of that split, you were like 5th to 6th, you played the team that won the split. You played Team Liquid, who, by the way, like, it's ridiculous that either team's in the position we even play each other in the 5th to 6th match. Obviously, these are 2 of the best teams. Like, Cloud9 was already a good team, right?
I think in the spring split, we were decent, but we weren't really that good.
Okay. What was the difference like going from Bjergsen as a mid laner to having Jensen as a mid laner?
I mean, I think initially I didn't really play well with Jensen because I was more used to Bjergsen being really communicated about what he wanted, and Jensen was just way more quiet and just played the laning phase way differently than what Bjergsen wanted. He just played for 1v1 usually and not really how to impact the map. He wasn't really looking out for that too much, so I had to change my playstyle, or just I had to learn how to incorporate him into the team plays and how to play differently as a jungle mid star, definitely.
I heard it described like this, and I've known Jensen for a while. Like, people have told me it's more like, in a way, I guess it's a bit like Forgiven in the sense, it's more like he just expects the jungler to know what to do. It's not like he's going to tell you. You're just supposed to know when to come and help him or when to cover for him. Is that accurate?
Maybe back then it was a bit accurate, yeah. I think Jensen's improved a lot on that. But yeah, I mean, joining C9, we didn't really have any structure on how we thought that we can win the game. It was just like we play laning phase, and then after that, mid game happens, and it's like, okay, like maybe we win, maybe we don't. There's no formula on how we should be playing the game as a team. It's like people just play lane, and then whatever happens, happens.
Right, obviously a topic I was always going to have to ask about is all the shenanigans with Reapered and getting benched and all that, which I know, put it as a spoiler, it's the reason why Jensen wasn't in the team after the split. Like, some players didn't like this because what they tried to do was one of the first teams ever to do it, to be fair, was trying to have, like, we've got, like, up-and-coming academy players, so it's like, you know, I mean, I know Reggie said in the past he was going to do this, he just didn't do it until years later. It was the idea that there would be a player behind you, and it'd be like football, you know, if you don't play well, it's the idea of getting subbed off and they bring the other guy in and you have to sort of earn your spot back again, right? Did you guys also think, like, I was just set up there, like, you can say you're going to do that. It's one thing to say it in a press release. We're going to have 10 players. I think even Team Look said this before, never did it. But it's another thing to actually do it. Like, usually when you have massive names, you're all getting paid massive salaries. You're not really going to sub that guy out. And you're definitely not going to make him go and play academy, etc. Did you almost think it was like an empty threat? Was it a shock when this happened that you just got, like, 3 years just got benched?
I mean, it was definitely a shock. I wasn't the one getting benched initially, so it was really awkward as well. Like, they were getting benched, and we just had to practice, like, keep practicing. I remember when they made the announcement or whatever, like, they were recording it, and it was just the most awkward thing ever. Like, there was no like one-on-one meetings or anything to like preface this. It was just like, okay, 3 people are moving down, and that's it. Like, we're gonna practice with some academy players moving forward. It's just like the most awkward thing ever. But I mean, I understand now where Jack was coming from back then, because he wanted to change the team to a way that he had more influence and it wasn't just player run, because back then it was just completely player run. So anything that Jensen or Sneaky and stuff didn't want to do, they didn't have to do. But he wanted to change the culture in the team to be more, I wouldn't say corporate, but more like he had more influence, and he was able to do that pretty successfully, yeah.
As you say, initially it wasn't you that got subbed, but then that was what's so weird, like, because it was implied like that they'd subbed the other ones for, like, whatever, either being badly or not scrimming properly or some almost like behavioural angle, because there's no way they thought Golden Glue was better than Jensen. I'm just going to say that right now. No, I'm not inflating Golden Glue when I say that. It's just no way. So then, halfway through the split, you got benched, though. Why did you get benched?
I mean, I don't remember. It's been a while. I think we were losing our games when the other guys got subbed in, so they just wanted to see what else would it look like, you know? So I think they used the benching as like a motivation thing. It was like, yeah, they bench someone and then maybe this is going to make them more motivated to play more games or get better. So I think that was what it was.
Wasn't it kind of bullshit to be playing academy games when you've won championships, you've been at Worlds, and I mean, like you say, no one knows how long your career's going to last. But didn't that sort of make you think, what the fuck's going on with my career?
I mean, definitely. It was just so odd. Just one day I'm playing in LCS, and then the other day I'm playing in academy, and I'm playing with the academy team. And it was just a completely different culture, I guess. Like, the academy team is never as serious as the LCS, so it's like, yeah, you just show up and then you play for like a couple hours and that's it. And the scrims aren't as serious, so people are just trolling in the scrims, I would say, back then. It was really low quality, so it was kind of a waste of time. But still, I wouldn't say it was like a bad time, because the academy team back then were really skilled compared to the other teams. So it wasn't like, I didn't feel like I was being held back or losing out on too much practice, because Cloud9 still had a good academy team for the season.
Obviously, in a weird way, even though it fucked you because you got benched because of this, also this like whole Reapered like chess moves and Jack and the benching, in a way played in your favour, because as you say, right, for the rest of the split you were in academy, but then in playoffs, obviously against TSM when they were down, they did that move where you and Golden Glue came in, because they just decided you and Golden Glue play better together and Blabber and Jensen play better together. And there's that whole like swore, and because you guys, well, it wasn't that you guys carried the game, but because you won these games and went to the finals. Then they did the weird thing where in the final, then it was you and Jensen to begin with. Like, give me some thoughts on this. Like, listen, I always thought the problem with Reapered was this. People know the concept now of like Donald Trump like playing 5D Jenga or whatever, 5D chess or whatever. Like, but I always felt like Reapered was on some of that shit. It's like he was really smart, but he was almost sometimes too smart for his own good, if you know what I mean. Because as far as I know, the players didn't even know these things were going to happen, right? It just happened in the game.
Yeah, I mean, Reapered just had full control and we were just the pawns, you know? He could do whatever he wanted, so... I mean... just leading up to the finals there, where me and Jensen are all playing together, I remember our scrims were just terrible. I think no matter who was playing, like if it was Jensen and Blabber playing, we would just get smashed. If it was me or Golden Glue playing, we would lose. So I think Reaper just like did a Hail Mary in the playoffs. He's like, at the finals, like, let's see what happens if Sven and Jensen play. And let's see what happens. Just like we're probably gonna lose anyway. Let's just scramble it up a little bit.
When you did get to come in though, because the thing is, the TSM series for you, that's like what you do in the movie version of your career, bit where it's like you're playing your old team with Bjergsen, etc. You come in as the in the fourth and fifth games, win the games, beat them, knock them out. I mean, that was even another year where they failed to go to Worlds. Was it satisfying to beat TSM? Was it a big deal to you personally?
Oh yeah, it was amazing. That was like one of the peaks of my career, definitely. Like in terms of satisfaction from that series. Also, just the whole lead up to it was just amazing. I think Reapered did a really good job because the whole week of scrims, or like 2 weeks leading up to the TSM series, we already knew like how the substitutions would work. Me and Golden Glue got told if we're down 1-2 at any point, then we're gonna play. If we're down 0-2, like anytime there's match point, like we would get a chance to play, basically. So we were ready to play no matter what. I mean, unless C9 would just win the series, then we didn't have to play, of course. But yeah, we were told already we're gonna play, basically no matter what, if it's a close series, and that just like I was totally ready for it. In the finals, it was just more like randomly, like there was no planning. It was just like okay,
just
now
tried every
we're
combo,
just
right?
swapping
Yeah,
up.
exactly.
Yeah, so it was like more confusing, definitely, and we weren't really prepared. But the TSM series was more preparation.
Because the weirdest thing to me is after all this drama and back and forth, and I'd even heard behind the scenes that because he definitely didn't like this. People don't know it. That's like he's like an egotistical guy, but Jensen's the sort of person that's like he knows he's really good. So it's not like I'm the one who fucking subbed for some guy and all this shenanigans. So I heard already he's probably gonna leave anyway. But you go to Worlds, and even though there was that ridiculous thing where it was the first year I think they did the plane, and you had to go through the plane or whatever, and there was some dodgy games where like they were trying blabber, but then they took him back out again, and eventually like you got the lineup properly set. Obviously, people now know it was actually the best result NA ever had at Worlds. You went to the semis, you beat you came back in the groups when it was looking like you were down and out. You did the comeback against some good teams. You got the win. The crazy one was beating the Korean team. Like no one beat Korean teams in best of fives back then. This was a big result, and you got to play Fnatic in the semis. Like, what can you tell me some thoughts on this run? Like, the summer split sounds so confused, and the way it ends in the final so whack. Did something happen in the boot camp? What happened in this playing thing? How did the team get together to eventually have this big performance?
I'm trying to remember these details, but I don't remember much from the boot camp before the whole thing. It was like me and Blabber were sharing time, and I think Reapered was doing it in a pretty good way. That during the time where you were sharing time, like you didn't have to watch the scrims. We were just grinding solo queues. So in a normal scrim day, from like 12 to 5 or something, you only play 5 scrims. But in those 5 hours, I was able to play like 10 solo queues or something. So me and Blabber were both able to play way more than like other teams were able to, even though we got a bit less scrim time. We got half of what the other guys were doing. But I think back then it was pretty helpful because I was just able to work on my mechanics, and like I felt like I could pick up new champions a lot faster just from having to scrim less, while still watching what they're doing, because this is the YouTube link, so I can just still see what the team is scrimming with. And I mean, that's just what I remember from the boot camp. I think going into the play-ins, it was a bit scary because I think Blabber didn't have too much experience, and Reapered was wanting to give him more experience or something because play-ins was easier, so it was just like a better chance for him to get some free experience, I guess, to level up. And yeah, I mean, it ended up being really scary because we won the series against Gambit like 3-2.
Yep.
That could have sent us home from Worlds, and we would have never made semifinals at Worlds if that happened.
Do you remember the series against Freaks? Must have been a big moment.
Yeah, I remember that. It was like crazy. I remember scrimming against them a lot in the Worlds. In the group stages, we were scrimming against Africa Freaks a lot because they're obviously in another group, and we never really expected to play against them ever. So we already knew kind of how good they were and how good we were compared to them. And I mean, in our scrims, I think we had like a 50-50 against like almost all teams except for like some Chinese teams, and obviously like the best Korean teams we couldn't really beat. But other than that, it was like pretty 50-50. And yeah, I mean, the series against Africa Freaks was crazy. I think everyone just played out of their mind. It was like
you were smurfing as well, right? This was pretty fucking good for you, I remember.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was playing really well, and just everyone kind of had their moments where they just stepped up and made a crazy play to just turn the game over. Like we just knew I don't know, like, I think there's just some points in your career where you just feel like you're in the zone. And I think during that series, we just all felt like we were in the zone. So we all knew exactly where we had to be at every point in the game and what the enemy was doing. There was never a point in the game where we got surprised by what the enemy was doing. We always knew exactly what we had to do. So, yeah, I mean, we just all played really well, I think.
Right. I don't want to put words in your mouth, so you tell me if this is accurate. But I know from players that I've talked to who've been in teams where either something like this, you keep losing in the group stage, you don't go to the playoffs, or you always choke at a certain point, if people want to say that. Sometimes it gets in people's heads and they actually start to wonder, like, is it me? Am I part of the problem? Am I a choker? Did getting this deep run at Worlds, did that change anything about like when you were in TSM? Did you think you were ever the problem? Did you ever wonder, am I one of the people keeping the team down? Was this sort of satisfying to show that, like, I mean, you're not in TSM at all now. You've had this big run.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely satisfying. No doubt about that. I think in the past, even though on TSM we didn't make it out of groups a single time, I think my Worlds win rate was still positive because I went 2-1 on SK and then 3-3 on TSM,
Right.
3-3 on
Okay.
TSM. So I was like the only one with a positive Worlds win rate or something. So I still had some confidence, but definitely it felt bad never making it out of groups, and making it out of groups on C9 was just unbelievable. That's got to be like the peak of my career.
Right, the story in this next split requires some behind the scenes info that people didn't have at the time, which is in the next split was when obviously Jensen left and went to Team Liquid, and in came what's his name, nisqy came in at this point in time, and this was actually like a really good split. Like this is where you guys won like loads of games, and in the semis, famously, you lost to TSM, and this was where, like, behind the scenes, if people don't know, the rumor was that you guys would, because you were on the other side, I can't remember how it was. I think in the top three teams just all played each other as the scrim meta or something. The rumor was you guys were just always beating them in scrims, and like you were supposed to win this series. This was supposed to just be like probably like an easy sweep or something. Was this accurate? What happened?
I mean, I think we were the best team in this. Like, I think we were so good, and it's that series is like the one series that has made me feel the worst in my whole career is losing that series against TSM. I remember after the game, I thought I was so pissed and mad, and just everyone at myself. I've never had this kind of feeling in my whole life before, that I just couldn't do anything to do with the game. Like, afterwards, I just needed a break because it was just crazy that we lost that. I remember we were up 2-0. We shit on them the first two games, and then the third game, we were in a winning situation. We got the Baron. We had a really insane team comp, but we were playing Time Kane Sicilian, and we both, before the series, we both said, like, okay, guys, no matter what, we cannot use our ults and the saving on the same guy. We have to space them out, and sadly, in the game 3, it happened. We used them both on the same guy, and Bjergsen Akali was able to capitalize off it. And yeah, basically, Bjergsen Akali happened, and we couldn't win the game. And I think game 4 and 5, I was pretty tilted, which is just no excuse for that. Like, I played fucking terrible in those games. I was just out of my mind. I think also in game 5, I made a massive mistake of, I think Reapered before game 5, he asked me if I was okay to play the game 5, and I was just so caught up in the moment. Like, yeah, I just need this game. I need to win this game. Like, I feel like we have to win this game, but I just wasn't in the right mindset at all, and I should have definitely let Blabber play that game 5. I think we probably had a higher chance of winning if I subbed myself out there, but I just didn't have it in me to do it.
One of the things I know used to make people a bit salty when I would say on talk shows like Listen Loco, I can't remember if we did the Crackdown already at this point in time, was I actually knew a lot about Reapered from when he was even in the Korean scene. I knew he was a really brilliant coach. So he had some very creative ideas. Obviously in this team he had full control, which was sort of something he always wanted, I'd heard, in his team. So like he could see how you scrimmed, and then he could also, like a proper coach. It's actually what every fan on Reddit claims they want the coach to do, to actually have the power to tell you, no, you're playing this champion, instead of just, the player going, like, if people don't know, back in the day, especially the player was more like, I can play this or that, and then it's like you would just figure it out like with a fucking big blackboard as to what you would play, right? But the problem is, I have heard from some of the players, you can tell me if it's true or false, that Reaper just took that too far maybe, and sometimes he really would just be like, right, I've drafted everyone this, and it's like, what? Like, is that even the comp that we practiced? Like, is that's maybe not even the champion I would pick? Like, did he have full control like that?
I mean, that's probably a little exaggerated. I think we did it as a team, basically, like draft meetings and stuff. I mean, obviously, in the end, he has to find a call, but most of the time, the way it's done is just you say what options you have in this draft, and then he chooses. So yeah, in the end, he has the final call, but still, you're gonna give him options of champions that you feel comfortable on, and he's not gonna pick a champion that he doesn't think you can play, basically.
Did you like his drafting style in general?
Yeah, I never thought it was like an issue. I never thought that we had drafting issues. I think a coach can only do as well as his teammates, like the players, inform him of. If if I say this matchup is winning, and then we go into the game, we draft the winning matchup, I've given him wrong information on, like, it's not his fault that he drafted a champ that he thought was winning because I gave him wrong information, for example. So I thought he was always a great coach.
Fair enough. Okay, in the next split, people might remember, even though, again, the team didn't win the championship, this time you at least got to the finals to play Team Liquid, and this was another epic one. It was actually Jensen having like a big Game 5 that cost you this title. What do you remember about this one? Like, this is another split where, like, I've heard the whole year, basically, Team Liquid was more like they just sort of got it together in the playoffs and just won by, like, being clutch or whatever. Like, wasn't Cloud9 supposed to just be the best team this year?
I think, yeah, we were supposed to be the best team in summer as well. I think the regular split, we were shitting on everyone, and there was, like, not much competition, I remember, but I still had my doubts against going up against TL because the year before, I also thought we were kind of hot shit, and then we just got 3-0'd by them in the playoffs, and I think they also won the summer split or something, so they were, like, crazy good. Even though in the regular split, we would usually beat them, but in the playoffs, they just, like, turned it up. I think Impact and Doublelift just turned it up big time in the playoffs. I mean, Xmidi as well was just crazy good. So I think in that summer finals, I think I felt more confident than ever that we could finally beat them. Having nisqy on the team, I think we just played really well as a duo mid-jungle, and just as a whole team, we knew how to influence the map and just get everyone advantages. So I definitely had the most confidence. Like, I felt like we were going to win that series, yeah.
Right, people maybe know it more for when he was with Blabber, but obviously this was one of the splits where, because you got to be the MVP, people might know that narrative around nisqy at the time was like he was basically every jungler's like favourite fucking mid laner to play with because he just automatically plays for the jungler and tries to help and invade and go. Give me some thought. Is this accurate? Is that how you play?
Yeah, I mean, that's just how he was back then. He was really easy to work with, and I think he just always wanted to be like a part of every play that was going on in the map. So no matter what, he's going to try to make himself able to be there. And that was just really helpful as a jungler, because as a jungler, like, you kind of need your teammates to be able to move and help you in a lot of times. And he would just always be the first one to move. And if your mid laner, say your mid laner moves 5 seconds before the other guy, then usually that means you get a kill. And if the enemy mid laner moves 5 seconds before, that means you die. So he was always just willing to give up some creeps in mid lane and just move first, which was just, yeah, really good playstyle, I feel like.
What would you say about the fact you won MVP this split? It's not that often that junglers actually win the award. Usually it's like a mid lane or ADC award. So what did it mean to win the MVP? Were you the best player at the time?
I mean, obviously I was really good, and I think the MVP it was really nice getting it, but I didn't see myself playing any better in the summer split than I did in spring split. I think in spring split I was playing even better than in summer split, so I was just like confused why I got it in the summer than why I didn't get it in spring, basically. But obviously it felt really good getting it, but it was more of like, to me, it was more like a team award. It wasn't like I single-handedly deserved it. It was more like we played really well as a team, and understanding of just the jungle as a team, basically. We all play around the jungle really well, so I just viewed it more as like a team award, basically.
Right, at Worlds, this was the one where, to be fair, you had a pretty hard group. You had Griffin, who was really good from Korea, and then obviously G2 was there. People know G2 was amazing this year. Right, in this group, though, there were times, it's like early on in the games you were playing, the team was in the mix here. The team could potentially have gotten out of this group, and then obviously they did that thing where Blabber came in and played some of the latter games, and then it just didn't work out. What would you say went on at this tournament? Because I just always wondered from your perspective, like, you were the MVP, like, you get subbed out the games. What happened?
Yeah, I mean, that Worlds is also the reason why I didn't stay on C9 the next year. I think just the subbing and stuff were not as calculated as it was in the past. I think that, I mean, maybe from scrims, Reapered thought that Blabber was just better than me, and that's fair, you know? Like, I think it just needed to be communicated a little more clearly. if that was the case going into Worlds, that Blabo was going to be the starter, but it was I was led to believe that I was the starter and he was subbing, but it was kind of like the other way around when the actual
Right.
games were played. So I think there's some miscommunication there that shouldn't have been there, and if that didn't happen, like maybe I stayed on C9 or something, but who knows? I think just from my perspective, I remember playing an elimination game. My second game of Worlds is like elimination game, and it was just the most worthless experience ever. Me as a player, I really like working together with my team and realizing what we need to improve on from losses, or really I know from the game, okay, we need to do this next time to win. But my first game at that Worlds was okay, we beat the team we're supposed to beat, like a Taiwanese team or something. And then my next game is against G2, and it's if we lose this game, we're out of Worlds. And I was like, holy shit, this is just insane. My first real game at Worlds is the elimination game, and if we lose this one, we're out against G2, who was just the best team at Worlds back then, or they were top 4, I think. So I was just really caught off by that, and I felt like I didn't get a really fair shot. So I definitely went into the offseason feeling some resentment, and yeah.
Right, obviously at the time there was that whole storyline, like you're mentioning, of basically it was implied by Jack and others that it was one, this blabber shit ends. If I play, I'm the player. Just let me be the jungler. And to be fair, you were the reigning MVP. It's not like an unreasonable demand. But then the other thing was, there's an infamous story. You told us on the Crackdown sort of what it's like, but I want to get your take now, years later, where essentially the story goes, you just gave Jack a list of players, if you get these players, I stay. But the problem is the list really was just it was also a control list, dude. It really wasn't it really just Chorfy, and basically it was the best players in the world, right? Is this how was the list really that insane like that? The best absolute players you could get?
I mean, the list.
Can you give us some of the lists? Who was on this list? Give me some names.
I mean, the names were Impact, Prodigy, Doublelift, Chory, Faker.
Okay.
There are some other people on there too on the list.
And is it? And I'll ask you again: is it accurate that the logic here really was just well, obviously he can't get these names, so when he can't get the names, then he'll have to sell me and let me go to another team?
No, I think Jack spun the narrative a little bit to get some sympathy for himself, because obviously in that off season I was being a complete dickhead. I have a massive regret for this. I wasn't communicating with Jack at all. I basically got an agent and just told the agent to do everything. I refused to talk to him because I felt like if I was talking to Jack myself, he was gonna find a way to make me stay, even though I already knew I didn't want to stay.
Right.
He was gonna talk me into doing something I just didn't. I felt like I basically going into that offseason, I was like, I don't want Reapered as my coach anymore, because I was just so pissed at what happened at Worlds, even though Reapered was a fantastic coach and probably the best coach I've ever had. I was just really pissed about it, and I mean, obviously I was being a brat, and I was like, I don't want Reapered as the coach, but Reapered is staying next year, and I know Jack was gonna try to make me stay and have Reapered as my coach, but I just refused. So I gave him the list of those 10 players, okay, if you really want me to stay, you get one of these players. If not, there's no way I'm staying. And then obviously Jack, because I think Jack even asked me, which players would, if I signed any players, which ones should I sign for you to stay? And then I gave him the list. I'm pretty sure it was something like this. I didn't just give him the list
right, okay. The order's out of whack on it. Right, I see.
I'm pretty sure Jack asked my agent, hey, he asked, what players would you want to play with? What can be signed for you to stay or something? Something like this.
Okay. What about, so obviously you left the team and you went and you came to Evil Geniuses. So if people don't know at the time, they actually had money. There's a team that signed a bunch of free agents. They had Jiizuke and Ignat. Well, Jiizuke was later, but they had Hooney at the time, which was definitely not cheap, etc. The problem was, as far as I remember, both years, you had the one where you had Impact next, and then you had this one where you had these lineups were they were good players, and the team would be sort of good, but it was never the team that was going to win the LCS, right?
I mean, going into the first split on EG, I think that C9 kind of made the bag or something, because they wouldn't sell me unless they also sold some other players from the academy team. So
yes.
So my next team got kind of limited from that because they had to buy other players that weren't necessarily the best players for the team. So I think I kind of shot myself in the foot there by being so aggressive in my off season on not talking to Jack at all. So I don't know if he would have done the off season differently or not, depending on what I did. But yeah, that's kind of what happened. So I think the EG kind of got shafted a little bit in that aspect.
Okay. Right. Then this unfortunately, this is a bit ironic. What basically sort of screwed you over in the end of EG, it's the same shit. Like they brought contracts and they started subbing in and out the jungler. Like it's sort of like you ended up in the blabber scenario again anyway. Right. Did your actual level of individual play go down at this time? Do you agree with being subbed out? Did it make sense?
I think me and Jiizuke just didn't play well together at all. I think even after the first year together, we both told the management like, "Hey, next year I don't want to play with this guy anymore." And he told the same to the management. And then the management brought in Peter Dunn that promised to fix the issues or something, and then issues didn't get fixed, and neither of us wanted to play with each other. So it was just like kind of a shithole, you know, like nobody wanted to be there. So yeah, I mean the substitution makes sense. I think that Contracts was more. I don't know if he played better with Jiizuke really, but Contracts had a different playstyle than mine, where he was more willing to just take random fights that Jiizuke wanted to take, rather than me. Like I wanted to play a little more calculated than what Jiizuke was willing to play at that time, if I can say it like that.
Yeah. I mean, if I ask a follow-up question, the problem is this is where when people use simplistic terms like this guy likes to roam, it's like there's a million ways you can do that though, and how you comment. And if you want, so just because Jiizuke roamed loads, it's definitely not the same as nisqy. Like I've heard nisqy was really good comms, and he would work with you, and he kind of would intuitively understand what you wanted to do. If people don't know, Jiizuke really was like a solo queue monster. He was just a guy who just like played in LCS like it was solo queue. If he just decides like, right, fuck it, I'm just going top, which apparently he just did on all his teams, he just goes off and starts doing it. Like, did he just really just make these players? He just didn't even comment what he was doing, or he just go and try some crazy fight?
I mean, he would just play in the moment, which is fair. That I used to do that too when I was young and haven't been on teams for a long time. Like I would just play in the moment too and just do what I felt like was right, and then obviously just do it again next time. Do what I felt was right, and I think that was just like kind of his problem. Is he would always just play the game that the way he felt was right, rather than what everyone else on the team felt was right. So he would just be by himself doing random shit, or just doing plays that would make himself really fat so he can carry the game, but nobody was really on the same page as what he was doing. And a lot of times you just get caught or play really aggressively and just feed rather than playing the game like calculated and just win the game slowly. You know, he was a really explosive player.
Right. The problem with how this ended in Evil Geniuses is no one's going to remember this detail because it was like, they came 5th to 6th. Like, no, if people forget, in the upper bracket, the 100 Thieves team, who, quite frankly, no one knew if this team was actually going to win the split or not. Like, they were the ones where you had like a 5-game series against them. And if you'd have won that series, you would have auto-qualified for Worlds. It was top 4 teams went at that time. But then when you lost and you went lower bracket, well, everyone knows, like, the Perks C9 team was mad sus, but they were fairly clutch. Like, Perks always been a clutch player. Like, they just managed to win the series. Like, is this a year where you thought you should have gone to Worlds? Would you have been a Worlds team that would have been able to do something, do you think?
I think at Worlds we could have done pretty well. I don't know if we would have made it out of groups or anything, but I think Jiizuke as a playstar could definitely work at Worlds because he's not going to lose lane against anyone. He just plays really aggressively and he's really good at laning. So usually at the Worlds, that's where the Western teams falls off if you just lose lanes against the Eastern teams. They just have better laning and you just can't really play the game because all your lanes just start losing. But yeah, I mean, I think at Worlds we could have done pretty well. And that was just crazy to me because I remember watching that series because I was basically not really going to play because they had contracts as a starter for them. And yeah, I mean, Danny was just making some crazy plays to keep us in the games. And we already thought we lost in like game 4 or something, but Danny made like some kind of crazy 1v5 play that made us able to win the game and actually have a shot. So yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Right. After that, people might know you were like signed to TSM, and then this year you played a little bit in that challenge team. What happened last year though? Where was Svenskeren last year?
Last year, after the EG year, I just didn't get any offers. I don't know what happened. I guess my reputation was just run the fuck down after that. After that split, I guess I'm getting subbed out and not really playing. So I didn't really have any offers that I felt like was good for me as a person, and I didn't want to play in academy at that time. I thought I still wanted to play in LCS, so I was in talks with some EU teams, but I didn't want to move to EU. I was still working on my green card in the last whole year, and I didn't want to eliminate that process of getting my green card because that's basically what would happen if I were to take an EU LCS offer. So yeah, I decided to just stick it out and just get my green card before I do anything.
Right, obviously, people will know now you are classed as the NA resident. Now, you're not an import player anymore, but it's just that at this point in your career, you're on the top teams. So, how has that angle worked out? Because as far as I know, a lot of players who went to NA, this is one of the reasons they stayed in LCS. Reason, as you say, like maybe some mid-table team offers you from EU LCS that might actually give you a better chance to revive your career, go to what, but it'll cancel the green card thing. You have to stay there for a number of years. You have to have the company sponsor you. It's a really complicated process if people don't know. But the premise is, if you can do it like people like Sven have, then the dream is you become a non-import and suddenly actually your value goes up if you're in LCS because then they can get the 2 imports. You potentially even get more money. How has it worked out? So on the one hand, you got the residency, but unless you do a comeback now, unless you get the big offer, I mean, it's possibly the end of your playing career, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty stressful being an import in LCS because imports mean that the competition is just way bigger. Like the whole Europe, the whole Asian countries basically is your competition, not just the NA people. But being an NA resident means that your competition is just the NA people, so it's way easier. But yeah, import is like the whole world basically you have to fight against. So I can see also the value going up a lot when you become NA resident because if you're an import level and you're NA, like the owners are gonna really want that. So your value goes up a lot, which is also one of the reasons why I stayed in NA for so long. Just the value goes up the longer you're here. If you end up being a resident, which, I mean, I got grandfathered in, so I didn't have to wait for my green card, which was a big deal about me staying a long time as well. But yeah, I mean, I think I would still be playing in LCS last year if I had the chances, but yeah, I just didn't get any opportunity to do so.
What has this year been like then? Because obviously you were playing in that NACL thing before it got cancelled, and then now you're just doing some coaching with Dignitas. Like, was the plan originally just play in Challenger and then hope you just earn a slot back and become an LCS player again?
I mean, going into this year, the plan was definitely I want to give it one more shot. I want to give it my all basically in the spring split and see if I can get promoted and play in LCS. That was the goal. I mean, me and Hauntzer joined the same team because we both looked at TSM status and we were like, okay, like we can probably overtake these guys. So let's just play good in the Challenger series and see if we can get promoted. That was like the whole thing.
And currently you're coaching in Dignitas. Is there a world where you just become a coach for the rest of your career now? Do you still want to give it one last shot as a player?
I can see myself being done playing. I think even here at the end of my in Challenger series, it was like I felt like I had to play rather than I wanted to play. So I think that's never healthy as a player. Like you need to have the motivation to really just put in the hours that the other players are doing. Otherwise, you'll never be able to beat them. I think that's what limits a lot of players from being the best in the world. Is just the other guys are putting in more hours. So you're never really going to beat the guy that puts in a lot more hours than you. And if I'm not willing to do that, I might as well just not play. So I can see myself just sticking out with coaching for the rest of my career, yeah.
Right, obviously I have to ask this question because even though, look, he's nowhere near a forgiven or any of those players. I don't think he's ever as bad as Doublelift, but Jensen can be a tiny bit spicy. Like he certainly has his own ego about what he wants to play. Definitely, by the way, on picks, he definitely has very strong opinions, Sarah. What's it actually like to coach Jensen then? That must be a bit of a trip.
I think it's not that bad. I think me and Jensen just have a lot of history that, I mean, I've known this guy since like season 2. It's 2023 right now, so like 11 years or something I've known this guy. So we have our history. I think it's very easy for me to talk to him. It's not like there's nothing awkward there. It's like just very natural, even though maybe other people have a very hard time working with him because there's not that history there. But for me, I think it's pretty easy to talk to him.
It seemed like this split, look, the team didn't do that well, but it actually seemed like, even though, I mean, I'm sure people who hate on him probably loving the fact that the team wasn't doing well, but he actually looked like he was playing pretty well most of those games still. What do you say about his career? It seems to have had a lot of longevity.
I mean, yeah, Jensen has always been good. I think he's a clutch player, and obviously sometimes during regular split, I think he's known to just not care too much. I think a lot of same level of veterans just have a hard time of really kicking it up during the regular season and really giving it their all. But I mean, Jensen is just a clutch player. You just need to make it to playoffs, and he's going to play really well during that time. So that's just what we need to do to split. Make it to playoffs and make sure that Jensen can step it up there.
You actually sounded throughout this interview, and Eddie described, even when you were in splits where you were a top player and you were the MVP, it sounded like you were fairly humble about your thoughts on yourself. Were you ever actually a player? Did you ever think you were the best? Did you ever think you were as good as the Koreans? At your peak, were you mechanically as good? Were you as good a jungler? What did you think?
I would say during my early career, maybe season 4, season 5, I thought I was the best in the world. But I think after then, I got humbled and tried to stay humble. Because I think during those times, I was just too selfish and had too much ego. I didn't feel like it was really leading me anywhere. I was never winning with this amount of ego, and I wasn't. Yeah, I mean, I could never win with me having this ego. Like, it didn't lead anywhere, so I might as well just drop it, basically, was my mentality.
If obviously there was the whole green card thing and you want to stay for that, but if you'd have ever gotten like an insane offer, like, look, I don't know if this could ever happen, but if like G2, when they were the champions, had offered you to come, or like one of the really good Fnatic lineups, would you have considered coming back to Europe?
It would have, depending on what time it was. I think after my stint on TSM, probably, yeah, I would have considered it instead of going to Cloud9. But I think when I've already lived here for like 6-7 years, I kind of feel like America or like Los Angeles is really, I just like it here a lot, and I kind of want to stay here for the long term, so I would rather not jeopardize that for staying in Berlin for one split. That is not certain at all. So yeah, I just prefer my living conditions here a lot more.
I get that angle, and obviously people will know you've had a girlfriend out there, etc. But one angle I always wondered about was Germany is quite close to Denmark, though. If you want to go back and see family and stuff, it makes it easy. It must be tough when you have to play so much of the year in the other country. And what did they do? Would your family come and visit you out there? Would you go back in the off season? How did you manage that? Were you not a bit lonesome for your family?
I mean, it is pretty tough because, yeah, I mean, I only see my family usually for Christmas time, for like a week during Christmas, and then if they have time during their vacations, they can come visit. They've only visited here like twice or something in the whole time I've been here. So, yeah, you definitely do sacrifice the family angle from coming over here and being an import. You do sacrifice that, but it just depends on how close you are with your family, how much that matters to you.
I mean, I'm sure you know this, but if you're ever in any like real world scenario and you say to someone like, oh, I'm in video gaming or like esports, right? 99% of people think they get it, but then they just say like, yeah, my grandson plays FIFA or something. And you're like, you don't get this, but whatever. So we don't explain it if people don't know if you're a fan out there. It's just like, they don't get it. Were your family the sorts of people, did they follow your career? Did they get it in that sense? Did they understand what you were doing and what like league is and the fact that it's got all this structure and it's a real role you play? It's kind of like a sport.
I think they understood it way more after I moved away from Europe and I moved to America, because it was bigger over here than what it was back there, and I think they kind of cared more about it because, yeah, I mean, I think moving to America is a big deal compared to just flying to Berlin every weekend. It sounds more extravagant than what it really is, just moving to America. So I think that's why they just started caring a bit more about it. I mean, obviously before then they still cared about it, but there was a lot of, it was a different feeling when I moved to America, definitely.
In the early days in EU LCS, I know that even though some of the teams were as good as the American teams and could go deep at Worlds, the salary was really low. Like, it was basically just like having an office job, basically, if people know what you got paid. In the LCS, especially in your heyday of some of the big teams you were on, I know the salaries were really big. Is that the sort of thing, like, do people back home get that you actually had a very good job in that sense? Is it impressive to people when they know, like, it's not just like, you're not just playing tournaments, like you actually have a proper salary, you get, I mean, it's a big career at the time.
I mean, that depends on what year this is, because Yeah, my whole career, I didn't get paid that much until like I joined EG. I was getting paid
Oh,
like,
really? Even when you were on C9, so you weren't getting like the big bucks. Okay.
yeah, no, because I didn't really ever negotiate my contract before that. I
Okay.
was just okay playing. I just wanted to
Okay.
play, so I didn't get an agent
Ah,
until I joined EG, and then that's when I made the big bucks. So,
okay.
yeah,
That's maybe one
5
minor
years.
regret then. If you could go back in time, you do that differently, right?
Yeah, I'll probably do it differently, but also what made me so good back then was that I didn't really care about it.
Ah,
So,
right. Okay.
like, I feel like if I would have changed my past, I wouldn't have been who I am today, and I might have just been in NA for 1 year only, and I wouldn't have earned nearly as much as I did. So, I don't really have any regrets on it in like that aspect.
Are you satisfied with your career? Do you feel like you did enough? Did you get enough championships? Did you have enough runs at tournaments and stuff?
Oh yeah, I'm very satisfied with my career. I only have a very few regrets that I wanted to change, and other than that, I'm very happy. I think I've been very fortunate to be on very good teams, and a lot of people trusted in me and gave me a lot of very great opportunities. Like, I think I've been on so many legacy teams that it's kind of crazy. I was on SK Gaming, like one of the biggest legacies in Europe, esports, and TSM, obviously. I was on C9. I've been on Evil Geniuses as well, which is crazy to think of. Just knowing esports outside
Yeah.
of League of Legends, how big they are. And yeah, I mean, I've just been very lucky and blessed, I would say, to have gotten this many opportunities.
At the end of this interview, do you have any final message? Do you want to thank or say hello to anyone?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say thanks to all the fans for making this a living career option, because I was never good in school. I never saw school being a thing I wanted to do long term, and League of Legends kind of, I wouldn't say saved me, but it's been a very big part of my life, and I'm just happy that this game has grown so big that, yeah, I've been able to do what I love for the last 10 years. So I just want to say thanks to all the fans that have been supporting on me and just supporting the game for this long.
Tusen tak.
It was lit.
As Mary J. Blige said in her track, All I Need, you're all I need to get by, which is the case for me and my Patreon community who support this channel and these videos. Some of them include Theogony, Matt Pognaccio Racula, Ahmed Haju, Joseph Adcock, Tosh, Bot Pounder 420, Toucan, Animosity, Tobias Bernasconi, Jensen Gore, Jiizuke, and a special thanks always to the main man, Jerky's Minion. Would you like to ask a question in my regular video AMA? Do you want teasers? Find out who upcoming guests are. Maybe you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content, or you want to take part in one of those longer esports discussions with me where we go all over the place. Well, if any of those grab your fancy, put your money where your mouth is, join the Risk Illuminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.